Lagoons and rice paddies in Catalonia form a unique refuge for migratory birds and rare species. But man has seized this land to cultivate it and exploit its precious resources. Wild species have therefore become endangered. Some are even close to extinction. Human settlement has disrupted this landscape and its natural equilibrium. A team of experts has been considering different solutions that may help save the Ebro Delta.
These are very vulnerable areas. Many people live here, and the interaction between nature and society is very important. Nature and ecosystems evolve rapidly, as does human activity. It is truly a living laboratory.
In Spain, on the Mediterranean coast south of Barcelona, the Ebro River forms a delta used to grow rice. Some natural lake areas subsist. These lagoons are located halfway between Africa and Northern Europe. They are used by migratory birds as a place to breed and feed. In the Ebro Delta Nature Park, the mission is clear: to preserve this haven of biodiversity. A salt plant operates in this protected area. It has taken the place of wild lagoons, but is tolerated owing to its economic role. It's one of the most productive plants in Spain, especially in terms of fleur de sel. Luckily, the salt plants are not lost for all birds. They attract flamingos, which feed on crustaceans and red algae that dye their feathers. Albert Bertolero, an animal expert, works at the Ebro Delta Nature Park. He monitors flamingos, one of the rare birds to tolerate the salinity of the salt marshes.
It's easy for them to find food here. It's also a very calm area where they can nest as a colony. They travel a lot, from here to the Camargue, southern Spain and northern Africa. Every year we ring the chicks.
There are many flamingos in the Ebro Delta. Up to 3,000 pairs live here. The park officer's mission is to preserve these iconic animals. Their young, unable yet to fly, are easily captured for the purposes of cataloging and ringing in order to then be monitored. Winter is coming to an end. The land surrounding the Ebro is thirsty and seems rather inhospitable to any form of life. Three times smaller than the Rhone Delta in southern France, the Ebro Delta is used to grow rice. This elaborate network of canals, combined with the Catalonian sun, guarantees good crops. This fresh water plays a crucial role. It applies pressure on the saline groundwater, which is seeped in from the sea. These seeds don't tolerate salt, and it's precisely thanks to this fresh water that rice can grow. The birds arrive swiftly. They leave their wild habitats to come and feed in the rice paddies, where the microorganisms are awoken by the fresh water and plowing. The sown rice is a blessing. There is abundant grain, and it's easy to peck at. The Ebro Delta birds are a problem for farmers who are not allowed to shoot these protected species, and shots fired into the air do not scare them off. The Ebro Delta Nature Park provides solutions to reassure the rice farmers. Here, the land is regularly devastated by the flamingos, but a crucial element could save the day. Blue light scares them off. Xavi Porres, a park officer, provides Luis Catalan with special material to protect his seedlings.
One day, I had to start over with the seedlings. I was furious. As you know, they come to my fields almost every year. That's why I need you to install the lights and stop them from coming.
Through this problem, I've made many friends all around the Delta.
It's strange that they always come to this field. This here is the Delta boundary. Over there, there's a road, the mountains. I don't understand what attracts them here.
It depends on whether there are natural areas, more or less food, or urban centers. There are many possible reasons.
Xavi Porres installs approximately 20 flashing lights in the affected rice paddies. Will they be enough to scare off the birds? The flamingos are not, however, changing their habits. Like every other evening during the sowing period, they leave behind their wild lagoons, attracted by the acres of recently flooded rice paddies. Xavi Porres keeps watch until late in the night. It's the only way to contain the farmer's anger towards the flamingos.
They most likely come from the Delta Spit or from the lagoons. They're looking for food and are heading to Luis's land. We're going to head there ourselves to monitor them. They aren't far.
Despite its best efforts, the Ebro Delta Nature Park admits with regret that accidents do happen. A care center has been built for killed or injured birds. Laura Fortunio, a veterinary technician, is this time confirming a death. But when possible, she cares for the injured birds in the hope of releasing them after a period of convalescence. Unfortunately, most of them end up permanently disabled. They will spend the rest of their lives in the aviary, away from predators and gunshots.
This one has an amputated wing. One of the flamingos, the one with the dangling wing, arrived with a fracture after having been shot at by a hunter. Yet this species is protected and it is prohibited to hunt them. But they do cause a lot of damage in the rice paddies during the sowing, which is why some people mean them harm. Here are some Audouin's gulls. The one with a bandage is on the mend. This other gull is awaiting release. The others have been traumatized after colliding with cars.
The SEO Birdlife Association's organic farm is exploring peaceful solutions to enable farmers and migratory birds to coexist. With the help of young volunteers, Sebastian Chano, an old-fashioned farmer, is preparing his seeds, which he keeps out of reach of the birds during the germination phase.
There are little dots, you see. This rice is already fermented. Not entirely, about 60%. Now take the rice. It needs to be spread evenly. Look at that. My word, you know how to sow rice. This rice is very tasty in a paella. We'll transplant it to the field we've prepared for that purpose. A lot of water is needed. Rice, animals, and even weeds, we feed them well. Look at these plants. They're alive because the earth is alive. But if we spray nasty chemicals again and again, more and more, on the rice and weeds, we're also killing the earth.
As you can see here, the water is coming and also the birds are coming. Before, the water wasn't there and also the birds weren't here. So now they have water and it's a perfect living for them.
The association's untreated land is healthier and richer. Now it's a question of protecting the rice from being devoured by greedy birds, such as the western swampfin. Sofia Revais, an animal expert, makes the most of the association's land to study this bird. She is looking at how to limit the damage it causes to crops.
It feeds on various invertebrates, tubers, and the soft part of plants. It grabs hold of them, cuts them, and eats that part, be it a reed or a rice plant. If there is rice, it gets eaten. When a bird causes agricultural damage, we can conduct an investigation and try to avoid it happening again. But if it persists, the authorities offer compensation. That way, we avoid the farmer's aversion to these species. In summer, the swampfins move away from natural areas towards the rice paddies. This is what we have observed through monitoring them with radio tracking.
Swampfins haven't always been considered a pest. In ancient Greece, they were appreciated for their colors and quasi-human behavior. A legend praised their loyalty, and according to Aristotle, they might even have been domesticated. A species can therefore go from boon to bane, depending on the interests of the era. Much to the joy of ornithologists, the SEO Birdlife Association has converted an old rice paddy into a lagoon. It now welcomes all sorts of birds, such as terns, egrets, and avocets. From the sky, the Ebro Delta is reminiscent of a two-finned marine mammal. These fins are actually sandbanks created by the currents. They harbor bays and a biological treasure of the greatest interest for biodiversity. Mother-of-pearl shells. These giant mussels can reach 1.50 meters in deep water. Here, they thrive, whereas elsewhere, they are attacked by disease. Patricia Prado is a biologist specialized in the study and safeguarding of mother-of-pearl shells.
Here we are in a sandy area. Mother-of-pearl shells are the only solid support for many organisms that can cling to them as they do on rocks. They are a species native to the Mediterranean and are endangered. Protecting them is vital.
Este es lo círculo que va a hacer Sebas y Latra y no els ho han saltat tant. Allí segur que no n'hi ha ni...
Potential harmful agricultural effluents flow into the bay. Patricia marks the mother-of-pearl shells to monitor their health, and that of associated organisms such as sea urchins. Tube worms have settled on this one and filter the plankton.
They form the natural habitat of numerous organisms. Here are some green algae and anemones. Sometimes there are even sponges, and here a fish is living inside. There you have snake-locks anemones, which are very typical of the region. You can eat them in many restaurants. Mother-of-pearl shells are a bit like a forest in which a number of plants and organisms can develop. In the past, the Romans used them to make buttons.
Mother-of-pearl shells are endangered in the Mediterranean. They are being kept under observation in this laboratory, which has been specially fitted to protect them from a deadly parasite.
We are preserving individuals as a precaution against the risk of the arrival of the Haplosodorium parasite on the Catalan coast. It is already present in many places, but so far the Alfax Bay in the Ebro Delta has not been affected. This is a genetic reserve. We are trying to get the mother-of-pearl shells to reproduce so that we can then reintroduce them into the bay.
The Ebro Delta Nature Park takes great care of its aquatic species. These technicians ensure the breeding of rare fish in order to strengthen their populations in the wild. Some are facing extinction on a global scale, like the Valencia killfish. It's a freshwater fish that can tolerate a certain level of salinity. Its lifespan is only 1 year. Pollution and the destruction of its habitat have decimated its populations. Esther Font, a technician at the Center for the Study of Fish, has been eagerly awaiting this moment.
It's very satisfying for us to witness their development, from the egg stage to the moment we release them. It's as if they were our children. Every day we feed them, look after them, and change their water until we free them. We are in the most natural part of the delta. They can have a good life in this very clean water, which comes from those mountains over there.
Clean water is rare in the Ebro Delta. The canals irrigating the rice paddies used to host a rich aquatic fauna, but today they have been covered in concrete, polluted, or drained. Fortunately, some canals subsist in their natural state. These canals are of particular interest to environmental conservation specialists, such as Miguel Angel and his team. These naiads, or freshwater mussels, have a unique cycle. Their larvae parasitize fish, which then helps them colonize the canals.
This type of naiad is very rare. In this part of the delta where the groundwater rises, a permanent fauna can be found in the canals all year round. For there to be naiads in a canal, the water must remain clean for 15, 20, 30 years. That's why the survival of these shells is no easy matter, particularly in the delta.
Another freshwater jewel are these lagoons, old rice paddies, or salt plants returned to their natural state. Horses ensure the trimming to keep the water clear, which is needed for all lake species. Though fishing was allowed for a long time, these waters nearly saw the extinction of the cestued turtle, a species endangered in Europe. Every year, Albert Botolero draws up an inventory of these turtles to see if they are efficiently recolonizing the area. He's installing the same nets the fishermen used in the past, the same nets in which the turtles would drown for lack of oxygen.
You always have to leave some of it out of the water for the turtles, so that they can breathe in the traps. Adult turtles eat crayfish, but big crayfish can eat baby turtles.
Product of globalization, the invasive California crayfish is now competing with the turtles. Albert receives help from the park's care center team. New generations of turtles are being raised for reintroduction into the wild. They are marked with a number, which is then replaced by an electronic chip to help identify them later on. They won't be able to start reproducing until they are aged between 4 and 7. Albert will be seeing them again when they are adults. Their reintroduction since 2006 has been a success. 85% have survived, and there are today around 500 of them in the lagoon.
Fishing is forbidden in this lagoon. This means that they no longer risk drowning in the fishermen's traps, which was one of the causes of their near extinction.
Be they turtles, birds, shells, or fish, all these species contribute to the delicate ecological equilibrium of the Ebro Delta. Their conservation is an arduous task, which only real enthusiasts such as Albert Botolero and his colleagues can ensure through constant involvement.
We're heading towards the dunes, which are home to the Mediterranean turtles. They're yellow and black, but aren't always very visible and hide in the bushes. We'll search for them with the help of my dog, Nesca. Here are some turtle tracks, 2 parallel lines. You can see the direction they follow. This particular turtle was heading to the right.
Unlike aquatic turtles, land turtles are not native to the Ebro Delta. Their natural habitat has been destroyed on the continent. Here, at the protected sandy delta spit, they can thrive. Albert Botolero is checking whether they are adapting well to this arid environment.
Toma el peso de la tortuga. Quieta ahí, quieta ahí.
This turtle weighs 600 grams. Its weight provides information on its health, on whether it rains enough, and whether there are enough plants for it to eat. Here conditions are difficult. These are dune plants and turtles only eat some of them.
These plants, like samphire, have a high salt concentration, which is not necessarily to the taste of the turtles. But it's no bad thing for rare plants, which botanists are seeking to preserve.
This plant is rare. It's a protected species. It's only found in the southern part of the delta.
In the Ebro Delta, natural areas have become scarce. The vegetation was cleared during the last century in order to create rice paddies. A narrow slither of forest survives in its original state along the Ebro banks. Sofia Revalles, the expert in the regulation of species, wishes to preserve it for its botanical interest and as a home for the wildlife displaced by the rice paddies.
This is a tamarisk. It is very well suited to saline soils and even secretes salt through its leaves. If you place one in your mouth, you can taste its saltiness.
This forest is tiny, and the park officials are helping it fulfill its role as a refuge.
Here is a birdhouse for the sparrows. Now and again, we come with a ladder to check whether there are any fledglings. Sometimes we ring them before putting the birdhouse back.
Everywhere else, the trees have been felled, but by removing them, the farmers have chased away natural allies that could be of use. The park officials must find new tricks to win them back. Xavi Porras has made a pact with the farmers to give back its place to one of the most useful animals in biological control.
Víctor. Hola. ¿Cómo estás? ¿Qué tal? Bien. ¿Cuántos hay? ¿Dos? Aquí dos.
There are two. They're moving. Little by little, others will come too.
These bats can save the rice paddies. Xavi pampers them so they feel safe.
In terms of construction, I opt for simplicity. They can come in through here. This natural cement box is the most common, with only 15 millimeters of space through which to come in and out. That's enough.
That way no predator can get in. This moth attracts rice plants, and everything it touches ends up rotting. You have to use pesticides. If these boxes can help control this pest in a more natural way, that works for me. When the rice sets seed, the invasive moth attacks. At night, clouds of them invade the rice paddies. Fortunately, bats find them rather tasty. A single bat can capture more than 100 moths per night. Mission accomplished. The bats have returned thanks to the refuge boxes. Xavi Porras takes advantage of this to closely examine one of the rare species of migratory pipistrelle.
They're becoming agitated and want to come out. At this time of year, when the Ebro Delta begins to flood, we notice that the females come together with the males in the refuge boxes. We don't know their migration routes well. For example, do they search for shelter along the Mediterranean coast before finally ending up in Germany? Further study is required.
Xavi has marked the bats in order to study their movements.
I'm really happy to hear the signal.
Xavi Porras has cause for celebration. The bats come back every spring to fulfill their role as predators of undesirable insects. There is, however, another enemy that is much harder to fight than the harmful insects. It spends winter underground, and every spring, the water from the rice paddies gives it a new lease on life. This enemy is the apple snail, an invasive mollusk native to Argentina. It devours all plants, and rice in particular. When food starts to run out, it eats the algae that grow on the shells of its fellow snails. It has both lungs and gills, which enable it to breathe on land and underwater. It even has a snorkel to get oxygen from the surface, which is useful in polluted or oxygen-poor water. The apple snail was involuntarily released from a recreational aquaculture center in 2013. The canals enable it to colonize the rice paddies in the north, and it now appears in the south too. Pesticides have failed to get rid of them. The team in charge of monitoring biodiversity finds them everywhere. It's obliged to destroy them, even if they keep coming back.
Here we have some apple snail eggs.
The apple snails reproduce very quickly. No predator eats their eggs because they are toxic. Miquel Angel, a freshwater conservation specialist, has never managed to get rid of this invader.
The biggest snail we ever found was around 12 centimeters. These snails can crawl along the ground, almost like land snails. If you take them out of the water and place them elsewhere, they're capable of traveling long distances to get back to the water. With regard to the rice, in proportion to their size, it's the smallest ones that have the biggest appetite.
Apple snails are a rice farmer's nightmare. Like many before him, Adrià Buera has done everything he can to try to get rid of them.
The most dangerous ones are about this size or even smaller. They are insatiable. This one looks dead, but is in fact still alive. They are very agile and climb one on the top of the other to reach the plant and make it bend. Then they eat the entire rice plant. Once the soft parts have disappeared, they start attacking the harder parts. They destroy everything. We have come up with a siphon system. The snail moves forward with the current and enters through a gutter. It becomes trapped. It ends up without water or humidity and can no longer move forward. This way, we can reduce their number. We don't have a choice but to adapt in order to survive alongside them.
This year, Atriapuera is attempting to sow in dry conditions to avoid awakening the snails. His rice can sprout safely, out of reach of the invaders. His friend Carlos Fornos, a seedman, is also promoting dry sowing.
The snails need to eat.
They eat everything they find. When the rice is gone, they go for the weeds. They destroy entire fields.
If they ate only weeds, they could become our allies in the rice paddies. For that, though, we'd have to make the rice germinate separately outside the paddy.
Greenhouse germination is another possible method of countering the devastating effect of apple snails. The seedlings are then placed in the rice paddies at a later stage, when they are stronger. With the help of pesticides, it's an ancient technique that is more hard work, but that has proved its worth to farmers. However, is the solution not to be found in nature?
Here, okay.
They are walking. How many are eating? 3. We need to get a little closer and wait, in case there is a snail, so that we can see it better. Everything started with a photo in which we could see an ibis eating a snail. From this photo, we are trying to prove that ibis do indeed eat apple snails.
In only 7 years, the ibis population has increased by several thousand individuals. Thanks to the boom in the apple snail population, an unexpected predator, the ibis might be able to free the rice paddies of a hitherto uncontrollable pest. Accepting birds as a means to ensure better harvests is a new idea, which will most likely gain ground. The Ebro Delta truly represents a delicate balance between man and nature, one that is constantly evolving and full of surprises. The Catalans have understood that the area needs to be respected in order to be promoted. They also reap the benefits of tourism in these preserved areas.
I love birds, every bird. And this is a particular beautiful bird, especially in flying and landing.
Behind this rather bucolic scene is a somewhat darker reality. The mouth of the Ebro, loaded with nutrients, attracts fish as well as those that eat them. But these waters are not as clean as they might seem. A slow poison absorbed by the birds is worrying the academics of Barcelona. Albert Bertolero is leading an investigation into a colony of gulls. Heavy metals dissolved in the sea are absorbed by the birds. There are traces of them in the shells of their young and in the food provided by the parents. This pollution can lead to malformations.
The adults fly off to find food and regurgitate it to feed their chicks. I love working in the field. You learn a lot because you're in direct contact with the animals and nature, and you can observe their interactions.
It's now time for the ornithologists to study the health of these gulls a little more closely. Moises Sanchez, a PhD student in biology, is studying mercury pollution and how it's accumulating in the food chain.
It's a very toxic pollutant, not only for humans, but for the fauna and wildlife too. The quantity of mercury is increasing in the bodies of animals. We can thus find out the degree of mercury pollution in the ecosystem.
Thanks to their samples, the scientists can implement new measures against pollution, which is reaching worrying levels in the Mediterranean. For now, the yellow-footed gulls are still faring quite well. However, another species which is much more sensitive to environmental hazards has attracted Albert Betolero's attention.
We're going to see some Ordwine's gulls. In the late 70s, this species was close to extinction. There were only 1,000 pairs in the Mediterranean. The number of eggs and their size give us information on the reproduction conditions of the female and for the current year.
Once is not custom. The artificial environment of the industrial salt flats actually protects Ordwine's gulls from continental predators.
In the 80s, 20 pairs started to nest in the Ebro Delta. Since then, the colony has developed and is now considered the largest in the world.
Thanks to everyone's concerted efforts, the Ebro Delta can play its role as a sanctuary for species at the edge of our modern and denatured world. But a much more serious threat is posed by the sea. Sea levels are inexorably rising. More acres have been flooded than one can count. This restaurant is putting up resistance. Its stone shield needs rebuilding every year. The situation worries Marcela Ortamendi, its owner.
About 40 years ago, I used to grow rice, even here. Over there in the sea, where you see those rocks, there was a path that led to the Fangar Peninsula. There were sand dunes, and the vegetation was spectacular, a real slice of paradise. But now everything has been drowned by the sea.
Even more concerning is the recently built tourist village, which is doomed to become an island in just a few decades. A simulation shows that half the Ebro Delta will be flooded by the Mediterranean in the next 50 years. In this exposed area, a house and part of the coast were washed away by the last storm. Carles Ibanez, an expert in coastal areas, is studying this phenomenon.
Here there's sand, and it erodes easily. In the event of a sea storm, it crumbles quickly and it all collapses. This problem is not only linked to the sea levels. That will be the case in the future when the levels will have risen by a meter. This will have an impact on the erosion. But for now, the erosion is mainly due to the lack of sediments in the Ebro.
Consequently, the land along the Ebro is sinking while the sea levels are rising. This double phenomenon will eventually put an end to the area's rice paddy economy. The salt is already infiltrating. It risks burning the crops. The riverbed and the canals it irrigates are also sinking below sea level. Manual evacuation of fresh water is needed, sometimes through pumping, an electricity-hungry process. To measure the sinking of the delta, satellite-detected beacons have been set up.
It sinks a few millimeters every year. This won't cause any problems in the next year, but it risks causing very serious damage in the next 30 to 50 years. Sudden events, such as natural disasters, for example, hurricanes or storms, are a cause of concern for a lot of people. But things are different when the changes are slow, even if the consequences will soon be dramatic.
Only the alluvium carried by the Ebro could raise the level of the delta. But lately, there hasn't been much at all.
This system only measures the compacting of the first few meters. It corresponds to the most active and most recent layer of sediments accumulated over the last few centuries.
The delta was born from sediments transported by the Ebro. The land progressively gained ground over the sea with the help of rice paddies and canals, which used to distribute the alluvium-rich water. What happened? Here are the culprits. 6 hydroelectric dams have been built along the Ebro. Today, they prevent the flow of sediments. In order for them to get through, drainage gates are required, but this is an expensive process. Anger is growing. Many have become aware of the danger. Mr. Paulette, at the head of the movement, is a fervent defender of the delta.
These sediments are accumulating in the dams that store them. No one cares that they're full of mud. We need to find a solution to ease the flow of sediments.
Pending a political decision, Carles Ibanez is on the hunt for solutions. He's managed to convince a plant that captures fresh water upriver. The sediments will be re-injected into the rice paddy canals, diluted and spread across several acres. It's a drop in the ocean with regards to the delta, but the experience could serve as an example for the dams to do the same thing on a bigger scale.
In this area where we're standing, the level is higher. This is due to the vegetation. It retains sediments, creates volume with its roots, and that raises the level of the ground. This is why we promote the role of vegetation in these sensitive areas, to retain more sediments and produce as much biomass as possible. The aim is to raise the ground level in proportion to that of the sea.
Will the attention of the best experts be enough to safeguard this delta? Their faith may do wonders.
This is a place we know and love, a place we live and work in. We don't want to see the delta disappear, particularly since this process is due to human error. No one wants it to reach that point.
Whatever happens, Catalans will remember the lesson of the Ebro Delta. Its safeguarding depends on the respect of its soil and water, on the equilibrium between its wild environment and cultivated land, for a vital interdependence between man and nature.